Well, Clay, that has to be my worst experience. How about next time we talk about your favorite tactic that you came up with?
Alright, Vlad, so you asked for my favorite battle tactics, and thus I present to you all the story of Be the Rock. Hello, everyone, my name is Clay, and welcome to Terminally Nerdy, and today we have another dungeon tale. Vlad asked for me to basically talk about my favorite battle tactic, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not a very tactical guy. I don't have a favorite single tactic that I constantly use when I play D&D. But there are instances where I used specific tactics to varying degrees of success. And today I'm going to talk to you about the story of Be the Rock, which is probably one of my most memorable weirdnesses. So to understand this, I'm going to give you guys some background. It was when I was in high school, 3rd edition had just come out, me and my high school buddies were going to play, and one of my buddies' dad had been playing D&D since the original Chainmail 1st edition years. His name was Mr. M, and he is honestly what I consider to be the best DM I've ever played under. And to give you an example of who he was, imagine Santa Claus. Seriously, he had a huge white beard, he wore glasses, big jolly dude. Basically Santa Claus in D&D form. It was the funniest shit we'd all thought. And he was really cool. And unfortunately he died a couple years ago and I kind of lost contact with him and all those guys, so sucks, but I kind of model a lot of what I do after the way he ran his games. He was very, very open. He let us, basically, as long as we could convince him that there was a logical in-game reason for our characters to be able to do something, he would figure out a way to let us do it. Which led to some shenanigans. In that game, my character was Derek. Derek was a half-drow sorcerer. And to understand Derek and Derek's personality, you need to understand a couple things. First of all, he was chaotic neutral. I wanted to see if I could do it. And according to everybody in that game, I played chaotic neutral fantastically. I wasn't super disruptive, but basically Derek did what Derek wanted to do, and fuck everybody else. Eventually he became chaotic good. Also, Derek was unique, as everyone in that party was unique, because of the way Mr. M had us roll stats. So in 3rd edition, you used 4d6, drop the lowest, arranged to taste. That's kind of where it originated. But Mr. M didn't like that. He liked organic characters. So what Mr. M did was we picked our race and class right out the gate before rolling, and we were stuck with them. He sat down and said, whatever you pick is what you're going to play, regardless of how you roll. At first level, you can obviously multi-class afterwards. So I picked Sorcerer. Sorcerers run off Charisma, meaning... And in 3rd ed, your Charisma score had to have 10 plus the spell level in order to cast a spell. Every spellcaster worked this way. So if you had a spellcasting stat of 12, you could only ever cast up to 2nd level spells. That was it! And the way he rolled stats was every stat started at an 8, then you rolled 2d6 in order, no moving them, and then you applied your racial bonuses. So I was a half-elf, and I forget what half-elves got in 3rd ed. But my stats ended up being as follows. No joke. A 16 strength, a 14 dexterity, a 10 constitution, a 14 intelligence, an 11 wisdom, and a 14 charisma. I had more strength than the party's barbarian. I was, straight up, the physically strongest person in our party of 6. So at first level, I took Exotic Weapon Proficiency Bastard Sword. He let me have it. He's like, you have a high enough strength, I'm not even going to worry about the +1 attack bonus necessary. So I was a guy, in one hand, wielding a huge honking sword, and the other hand casting spells. It was ridiculous. First spell I had was Mage Armor. I basically armor up and charge in and just beat people to death. It was ridiculous. And early on in the adventure, like I say level 2 maybe? We come across a dark forest, and he tells us there is clearly intent radiating from the forest, like evil intentions. Like there's clearly something in this thing that does not want us in. And because he allowed us to do things as long as we could logically explain them. I said, well, sorcerers have an innate connection to magic, which is true. That's how they function. They don't learn, they just know. And because of this, I should be able to attempt to connect magically to the entity in the forest if it is magical and communicate with it. He wrote me a note, and the note said that I'm now inflicted with insanity. Because I did, and it fucked with my head. So from that point forward, Derek was chaotic neutral, doing whatever he wanted, and randomly he would just decide to do things that literally never made sense. Nobody understood it because it was just told to me, and I didn't tell it to the party, that he had literally been affected by the insanity effect. And since nobody understood that that's what happened, they just thought that was chaotic neutral. No, he was legitimately crazy after this point. And the tactic of Be the Rock came into an event where one of our players had to miss a game. Mr. M did not like NPCing players who missed games, and this dude had to miss it because of work. Like, there was just no option. It was a big concert, and he worked at House of Blues. So his character was kidnapped in the middle of the night. We immediately, because we've been adventuring, I think we're like level 3 or 4 now, we've been adventuring a while, so we go to save him. He comes back the next week. We're like, you got kidnapped. So he makes his character's brother, who is searching for his character, to bring him back home to, like, be crowned king of their clan. So we're going to rescue his character, whose name was Ox. He was a big old, giant, beefy fighter. And we end up going, we track these people who kidnapped him. We found out later they're cultists, because of course they're cultists. Into a cave system, track them through the caves, and eventually we get into a fight in front of this huge underground temple. And the fight was against a bunch of goblins and some dark mantles. And during the fight, the goblins are peppering us with arrows, and Derek gets it in his head that he's got a black robe. He's just going to be a rock. Non-threatening. So, in the fight, I had Derek drop, sit cross-legged, put his hands like this in front of him, put his robe up, and just went, "Be the rock." And that's all I did the entire fight. It drove the other players nuts. But he was crazy. And I mean, this is stupid. The best part, though, is it worked. The goblins couldn't hit me. I had a 12 AC. I didn't even cast mage armor. I should have been hit, and they shot at me because I sat in the middle chanting "Be the Rock." Like, I wasn't being quiet and trying to pretend to be a rock. I was literally sitting there just chanting "Be the Rock" constantly. And the goblins couldn't hit me. At one point, he described an arrow going right through my head, just almost hitting me, and my response was, "Derek's just gonna be the Rock." Eventually, I was no longer the rock because a dark mantle landed on my head, and we had the party's cleric bash it off of my head. There's more antics for Derek, like legitimate, just insane things that I did because I was a teenager playing a crazy person. Eventually, he did get healed, though. We found a weird magical box. Derek decided to stick his head in the magical box to try to commune with it magically, which worked. But the box also cast heal on me, removing the insanity spell, changing my alignment to chaotic good, giving me a level of cleric, and making me suddenly the head cleric of a dead god of magic. It was a very strange event. All because I stuck my head in the box. It was a weird game. Lots of weird shit. One of these days I'll tell you about the time in that game where we detonated an entire floor of that temple using Stinking Cloud and a Flame Strike trap. Killed my second character, though. That was funny. Alright, Vlad, so there's the story of my favorite battle tactic I've ever used, where I was a rock. So next month in October, I'm not going to do a story, but Ivan is still going to do, or Vlad, however you want to call him. So Vlad, pick something random. Do whatever you want. Tell a story of anything, and I'll be telling a story again in November. October, I wanted to catch up on a couple of reviews and some other stuff, so it'll be a little bit of time. I've got 2 reviews. I'm going to talk about a world-building journal, talking about mythology in your game, and I'm also going to talk about the importance of your character's backstory when it comes to games. So, look for that starting October. As always, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you have a story to share about your favorite battle tactic, either that you always use or, like mine, where you were just a rock, please leave it in the comments below. Hit that like button, go watch Vlad's video. It's in the description box. Check out all of our dungeon tales. In the description box, you can kind of chain backwards through them all. If you have any concerns or anything, feel free to leave them. Hit that like button if you like what I'm doing. Hit that dislike button if you don't. Feel free to subscribe to me if you want more stories, shenanigans, reviews, and other tomfoolery. Feel free to support me on Patreon if you're so inclined. And as always, folks, thanks for watching, and remember, stay nerdy!